There are many ratios that when measured helps us determine the man or woman's facial attractiveness. I have covered many on my channel. Like for example, the mid-face ratio, which determines how compact your features are. The facial width to height ratio, which is self-explanatory. Gonio angle, bizygomatic to bigonio width, chin to philtrum ratio, and many more. But there is one ratio that is not discussed enough or just straight out looked over, even though this one is also highly important to determining facial attractiveness. I'm talking about the eye separation ratio. This video will go into details explaining what is the ES eye separation ratio, how to measure it, and what is the ideal in quotations ES. This video, like many others, will be split into two main parts, so you can go ahead and skip to the desired one. Part 1 will talk about the ES ratio and how to measure it, and Part 2 will talk about the ideal ES ratio. If you want to support the channel and get your face evaluated by me with personalized look max and advice, link will be down in the description. If you want to read more about topics like these, you can check out my blog at neurofacerating.com. Without further ado, let's get this video started. So what is the ES ratio? Well, ES ratio stands for the eye separation ratio. To get the ES ratio, you will need to divide your IPD interpupillary distance with your bizygomatic width, which is the widest part of the face. The ideal range for the ES ratio is in between 0.45 and 0.47. The ES ratio is a more reliable way to measure whether the eyes are too close together or too far apart than just the IPD. It certainly is more reliable than the age-old trick of using a third of the eye to fit into the space between your eyes. The eye separation ratio is useful not only in determining the ideal distance between the eyes, it is also a helpful metric for telling if a face is attractive or not. On top of that, there are research papers that studies the claims of the ideal ES ratio. For example, this study by Pallet in 2010 analyzed a certain image. The researchers modified the image to different proportions. Then they studied how people reacted to the images and which one looked the most attractive to most people. As it turns out, the ideal eye separation ratio of attractive faces was about 0.46, a number that is within the normal range for the ES ratio. Some people say that an ES ratio below 0.45 is an acceptable ratio. There are many attractive celebrities with an ES ratio of below that number. However, the consensus is that anything below 0.42 would be disastrous to the overall facial aesthetics. To fully understand how to determine the ES ratio, you have to determine the IPD or the interpupillary distance. As the name implies, the IPD is the measurement used to measure the distance between the two eyes' pupils. This is not the space between the eyes. The interpupillary distance is all about the space between the centers of the two eyes. While interpupillary distance is a useful tool in facial aesthetics, it also has applications in eye solutions. Getting corrective or assistive eyewear is not a simple go to the store kind of thing. There is also other things to consider. IPD is one of them. With the proper use of the measurements, the patient will have a more comfortable time with the eyewear. However, IPD or PD is not always necessary in every eye examination. If the glasses lens doesn't align with the eye center, it could cause eye strain or headache. And if you ever had glasses, you know that headaches are real when it comes to eye issues. Zygomatic width. In simplest terms, zygomatic width or bizygomatic width is the widest part of the face. The zygomatic area of the face is where you can find your cheekbones. Zygomatic region and zygomatic width is the distance from the two ends of your cheekbones, the widest part of your face. The metric is important because there needs to be a balancing figure when measuring eye separation. The IPD alone is not enough because it doesn't take facial harmony into account. Because every face and eye size is different. Your eye separation might not be that big, it could even be well within the average standard. However, that all mean nothing if you have a wide face to begin with. A normal distance between the eyes will not look great if the facial width is too large, hence there is a need for the ratio. As previously mentioned, the ideal ES ratio range from 0.45 to 0.47. If your eye separation ratio is within that range, then you can rest assured. Here are a couple of examples of what an ideal ES ratio will look like. Sean O'Brien is a good example of a face that has the ideal eye separation. The space between his eyes looks just right for the width of his face. However, even a little change would already stray beyond the acceptable 0.45 to 0.47 range. But that does not mean that going beyond those numbers makes a face unattractive. It is still a relatively loose range, and there is room for marginal errors. For example, Sean O'Brien may no longer have a perfect ES ratio if his measurements were not exactly like they are, but very little changes are not likely to completely mess up his attractive appearance. There is a lot of wiggle room when it comes to estimating the ideal ES ratio. However, it is probably safe to say that the ES ratio should not go beyond 0.42. If it goes above 0.5, your eyes start to look too far apart. However, far apart eyes can look attractive too. For example, in the case of Anya TaylorJoy, her ES ratio is well above 0.5 and her IAPD is huge, which could normally look uncanny, but it works for her because her eyes are so big. She can still fit an eye's width in between her two eyes and has a harmonious face. Plus, she frequently wears wide hairstyles that make her face look wider, offsetting the IPD width. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. A like and subscribe will be highly appreciated, and like usual, catch you guys in the next one.